Hello, and thank you for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. Now, if the pressure wasn't on before, it's certainly on now, as Israeli President Reuven Rivlin prepares to task Kachol Lavan Chairman Benny Gantz with forming the next government. Gantz will be given the official second mandate to negotiate a coalition at a ceremony Wednesday evening, after Prime Minister Netanyahu failed again to get a majority in his latest attempt. But in spite of the odds stacked highly against him, Gantz is projecting high confidence. Speaking to reporters, Gantz says that the feeling is terrific, and that unlike Netanyahu, he will negotiate openly and seriously. As for Israel Beitenu head Avigdor Lieberman, he agrees with Gantz that Netanyahu has been playing political games, but he's also not willing to discuss a so-called minority government, which would include his party, Kachol Lavan, and all the left-wing and Arab parties. In fact, Lieberman even says that we will not address this issue, but if we reach an understanding about basic government guidelines like on wage, Haredi enlistment, and separation of religion and state, then we'll talk about it. Meanwhile, though, on the other side of the aisle, Netanyahu loyalists are projecting their own confidence. They predict confidently that Gantz will fail the second negotiations, leaving the task up to a third lawmaker. And they also predict that this third attempt will be successful regardless of who's in charge, as the threat of third elections will finally force Knesset members on all sides to compromise. The writing is on the wall, and it's frightening. Twice now this month, Israel's high-level security cabinet has met ahead of what is highly expected to be a major attack from Iran, in line with Tehran's recent activities including kamikaze drone strikes in Saudi Arabia and attempted drone attacks against Israel. But specifically, Israeli sources warn of a direct cruise missile or drone strike by Tehran in response to recent attacks on Iranian proxies in the region. And in fact, just on Tuesday, at least 3 unidentified drones were seen leaving the area of an attack in Syria, having targeted Iran-backed pro-Assad militias. Well, so to prepare for the threat, ministers discussed a 1 billion shekel project pushed by Prime Minister Netanyahu that would support Israel's air defense systems, particularly to defend against cruise missiles, which fly relatively low and are harder to detect. Additionally, in a rare official trip, a small but senior Israeli delegation has arrived in Bahrain to participate in a security conference co-hosted by Bahrain, the US, and Poland. The summit is part of the Warsaw Process, which discusses regional security in the Middle East. And finally, Israel is also, of course, pairing with regional powers like the Saudis, Egyptians, and Jordanians too, as they and American forces combine to counter the Iranian threat. As for Iran, though, aside from waging proxy wars, Tehran is now announcing another defiance of international agreements, in that in just 2 weeks' time, the second circuit of the country's Arak heavy water reactor will be completed. This after also advancing centrifuges to enrich uranium beyond limits set by the JCPOA last September. So who was the so-called glorious martyr who made such an impression on the land of modern-day Beit Shemesh that a massive church was erected and later expanded by Byzantine Emperor Tiberius II himself in his or her honor? Well, we're not exactly sure, but the question has been irking Israeli Antiquities Authority archaeologists for over 3 years since they first broke ground on the massive excavation site, because whoever it was, they were really important, as the martyr's deeds earned him or her a massive church founded some 1,500 years ago on a complex some 1.5 dunams or 0.3 acres in size. And that's not all. The church was adorned from top to bottom with incredible and intricate mosaics depicting fruit, fauna, and geometrical designs, and it also featured beautiful frescoes, pillars, and columns of imported materials. Then finally, the church was flanked by 2 large halls, a large atrium courtyard, and a rare, fully intact crypt where the martyrs' remains and relics were stored. And as if that wasn't enough, excavations also included thousands of participants and volunteers to reveal the thousands of artifacts discovered in the complex, including the most complete glass window and lamp collection ever discovered in one site in Israel, multiple inscriptions, and a one-of-a-kind baptismal font in the shape of the cross. Now, when you think of pro sports and the athletes around the world who earn hero status for their incredible feats, you probably aren't thinking of Israel and Israelis. It's okay, we're not offended. And in fact, Israel has only won 9 Olympic medals since debuting in the summer of 1952 at the Helsinki Games. But it finally looks like that might be changing as Israel prepares to send its biggest ever Olympic delegation to Tokyo in 2020. At least 85 athletes competing across 18 sports, and more athletes still have more time to qualify as well. But now it's not entirely surprising. Israeli sports have been improving in caliber and scope for years, and at least 10 athletes are thought to be on track for the finals already. So then who's going? Well, according to Vered Buskila, 3-time Olympic sailor and vice president of the Israeli Olympic Committee, the list is incredible and crazy by Israeli standards. It includes athletes competing in baseball, rhythmic gymnastics, artistic gymnastics, equestrian show jumping, cycling, sailing, shooting, and surfing. And then those who are likely to qualify but just haven't yet, like Sagi Muki, are competing in judo, windsurfing, running, swimming, and more. That's all for now, so follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and of course on Instagram. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.